Good idea.
Good morning, everybody. It's Saturday morning, which means only one thing. It's time for Clutch Radio with Raffi and Dan. It is, what is it? The 24th of April. We're coming up on a 1-year anniversary of doing this show. It might actually be next week.
And that's 1 year. Is that 1 year doing it off radio, or 1 year in this current
1 year in this 1 year of the Clutch Radio with Raffi and Dan online, not the old Seattle CBS radio show.
AM radio. Was it 710 or
it was 980.
That's it. That's
the
it.
Fan.
The Fan.
Not WFAN either. It was like WK. It was like KFNQ or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, but this is Clutch Radio. We're online every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time, which, depending where you are, you have your own time zone, and that's where you can hear it. We also have a podcast, which every single episode, you can go back to the very first one, is available on all your favorite podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Google, wherever. Pod World. Is there a Pod World? Pods are us.
Pods are us.
I don't know. But whatever you have, we have them. And today's show, we're going to talk about a lot of interesting things. And we're going to start it with the big voiceover guy doing the opening. So here we go.
It's time to start your engines and be part of the conversation. You can always ask the experts, Raffi Manassian and Dan Rosenberg, because it's now time for Clutch Radio. The show starts now.
Wow, he's angry.
That's powerful. He's like Thor.
Yes. Now we start the show. Now, Loki.
He's the Hemi engine of announcers.
Yes, that thing got a Hemi. So I want to start today. I posted a question on Facebook, which I usually don't do before the show. I usually kind of surprise, and I don't know if you were on Facebook this morning, but this will lead into something totally different, I'm sure. But I wanted to ask people, what's a car that they stopped making that you wish they still did?
Oh, that's a good one.
And of course, Ray, our good friend, Ray Pepper, the car dealer, S&P Auto and Giggity Gig Harbor, I think it's where he is, or University Place. He, of course, the Toyota MR2. That's the one he went with immediately. And it's one of those cars, and a lot of these companies do this. They make a car, they perfect it, and then they stop making it.
Yeah.
And Toyota does not have a mid-engine car anymore. MR2, I believe, stood for mid-engine rear-wheel drive two-seater. I think that's what the MR2 stood for.
Yeah.
And it made me think of the Fiero, because I own two Fieros now, a black one and a red one. And I liked both of them. And again, Pontiac finally got to the point where they're making a car. They finally got it right in 1988, and they said, we're done.
Well, the Pontiac Fiero is a really good one to talk about, because the car was originally built, and General Motors Pontiac division was a performance division for General Motors. They built performance cars. So it was no surprise that Pontiac wanted the Fiero to be a performance car, but the GM brass said, if we're going to do this thing, it can't be a performance car. It's got to be a commuter car. It's got to be something mild and something sort of like a compact, good on fuel car, but with a sporty flair. And so that's how they sort of marketed the Fiero when they first released it, I believe in '84. And so you got a kind of tepid four-cylinder, sort of the General Motors version of the Fiat X19. And while it was a good car, it was, more importantly, it was a very innovative car. It was a very innovative platform, mid-engine design. The design itself was quite unusual, and it used sheet mold compound SMC body panels. So you could get a lot of production value out of it because the costs were lower than doing a full steel stamping for a brand new car. But little by little, they realized that people wanted more performance out of that car. And like you said, by 1988, they started making the car. There's the GT with a V6 engine and a little bit bigger wheels and tires, better stance, a really nice performance car that would clean the clock out of pretty much any contemporary car during that period, if just slightly tuned to run against some of the big dogs. And then, of course, they killed it. They ended it.
Yeah, I had an 88 Formula that I bought at auction. And I made the mistake of buying the car before I sold the car I took to auction to sell.
This was the red one, right?
This was the red one. They only made 2,900 Formulas that year. And it was not this body style. It was the regular body style, but they called it a Formula. And let me see if I can find a picture of that one. And it was super fast and gorgeous car, just an absolutely gorgeous car. And 88 was the year they stopped. And I think the body molding process you're talking about is what they used for Saturn and also for the new minivans that they came out with, the Transport that looked like dustbuster vacuum cleaners.
Yes.
And they used
Transvan, was it? Or they had a
Transport. Pontiac Transport.
Yeah.
And they also had like the old Silhouette and the Chevy Lumina.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chevy came out with the Lumina, and they had a 2-door, a 4-door, and a minivan, all called the Lumina, which made no sense. But yeah, they finally did it right. And they go, we're going to stop now. And it had a very short run. Another car, which we'll be talking about in, I'm sure, a lot of length and detail in the near future, was the Cadillac Alante. That was one that Cadillac wanted to come out with a really cool car that was, they were trying to compete with, other European cars like the Mercedes SL or the, what's the other one? Oh, the Jaguar they were going after. And they decided we're going to make a car that is going to be as European as we can make it for Cadillac. They went with front wheel drive. There's a picture of one. Excuse me. Front wheel drive. It came with a hardtop and or they all were convertibles, and some you get with the hardtop as well that you could take off, not a convertible hardtop. And they made these for, I don't know, about 6 or 7 years. They made about 21,000 of them. And then, of course, they stopped. They put the North Star engine in it. It was one of the first cars to have the North Star. And they're like, all right, we're done. And they didn't sell like great gangbusters, but they were $60,000 back then.
Yeah, this was a very, very expensive car. It was highly optioned, meaning the standard one you got for, I think, $54,900 was the original sticker price. These cars were designed in Italy. Pininfarina did the body work, aluminum components, aluminum body components, fantastic interior, leather interior, CD sound. I think one of the first production cars with CD sound. And, a lot of just tons of money spent making this amazing automobile, all kinds of creature comforts, exotic suspension, very expensive. And there's plenty of them that are out there still today, and quite a sizable group of collectors and the car community that chase after these cars, take really good care of them. And a nice one, when you see a nice one out there today, it's a pretty captivating car. It's still good looking and has a lot to offer. It's from a period in time where, look, the reality is you're just not going to see this kind of car from the automobile makers anymore in the future. The era of personal automobile transport for two people in a convertible luxury type car, I think that period is going away, not because car companies are disinterested in it, but because there are a lot of used cars that you can get that satisfy that market need for a lot less money than a company can make it for.
Yeah. And these, they have so many buttons and trinkets, and they have the digital dash, one of the early cars with the digital dash.
Yeah.
And they were very, They were forward thinking for sure.
Yep.
And again, I feel like had Cadillac not given up in 93, now they did come out with the XLR, which was a smarter move because that was basically built on a Corvette frame.
Right.
With a Corvette engine. So you had a two-door, two-seater Corvette as a Cadillac. Now those, again, didn't do gangbusters, but had they put like a Corvette engine in this instead of the, if they made it rear-wheel drive and they put the Corvette engine in it, these might still be made. Now, Alante is a made-up word, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's an actual Italian word by any means. Pininfarina, of course, made the bodies. What was amazing about this, they made the bodies in Italy and they flew them over. They had a specially made 747 that could carry 53, I think, completed bodies, and they flew them over to Detroit and then lowered them on basically the Buick Riviera or the Buick Riata frame.
Riata.
And they put it on that, and that's where they assembled. They say it's the world's largest assembly line ever because they had to fly them over. And it's just one of those things where they try something, and it seems like 5 or 6 years, and like, all right, we're done. And the sales weren't great. They only did, I think, 21,000 in all those years. But from a marketing standpoint, if you're a young kid, like I was a senior in high school when this car came out, or maybe a junior in high school, and you see this car, you go, oh wow, that is a really cool. What is? Oh, it's a Cadillac.
Yeah.
So then you go, what's the cheaper Cadillac? I can't afford this, but what is there a Cadillac I could get into? I want to get up to an Alante someday. So maybe I'll get a Cadillac Catera or whatever that crap they had, or the Cimarron. Yeah, the Cimarron.
The Cimarron.
Yeah.
No, the Catera came later. That was the Caddy that zigged.
Oh, that's right. Now, Ray, of course, misses the Pinto.
The Pinto was a really very, very innovative car. The Pinto was Ford's compact, low cost, low frills car. And what maybe Ray is being tongue in cheek here, but I think what he misses about the Pinto is the fact that you could get a car with rubber floor mats, roll down windows, which you hand crank to roll the side windows down, a 4-cylinder engine, and you get a car that would work very well for you as general transport. Now, of course, the Pinto would go on to become quite problematic for some design reasons that would cause it to explode under certain rear end collisions. Not a good thing in your automobile. You certainly don't want that. But during that time frame, the early 70s, Ford built the Pinto and another car, which I think was really a nice balance against the Mustang, and that was the in-betweener called the Maverick. And,
yes.
And the Maverick offered a V8 option with the 302 V8 engine called the Maverick Grabber. And the Grabber Maverick was a nice performing car, balanced really well, shorter wheelbase than the Mustang, and lighter weight. So you could get a lot of performance out of a Maverick. And actually, I thought a pretty good looking car for the times. It was, in fact.
Yeah, and oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it was going to be my one of my old school candidates. It's on my list, but we'll bring it back.
I thought we did the Maverick.
I thought we might have done the Maverick. You're right.
And I noticed on the Facebook page of the local Cars and Coffee that somebody local just bought a Maverick.
The green one with the bright green grabber.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that one will be showing up soon at our local Cars and Coffee. Apparently, I don't know who bought it, but somebody said on the page, I'm not going to say who it is, but there's a local one.
There you go.
Now, speaking of that, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the fantastic American cars that was built for a short period of time, and I believe, although maybe we covered this, I think Ford is bringing back the Maverick.
Oh yeah, it's coming back as a little pickup truck.
There you go.
Now, Chris in the comments mentions this car.
Oh, sure.
The Volvo C30. And of course, I know that he likes this color and he likes the R type, or the whatever they call the R version, type R.
So, Chris is absolutely right. This is a great little car. Volvo built them Uh, there were two versions of this car. I think this is the better looking one. There was one they built earlier, and I can't recall if they imported them to the United States, what the period was, but it had a different glass design and a different body design, but the basic overall proportions were the same. This was sort of the modern answer to the Volvo P1800, which is also on my old school list. And this is a great car. There are plenty of them out there. They made thousands of these, so you can go out and buy one in the used car market and do very well purchasing one of these. The performance version of this car is a fantastic car. It drives phenomenally. I mean, it's on a par with any of the top double the price, maybe even triple the price sports cars, and will slalom with the best of the Porsches, and certainly on a par with other short wheelbase performance cars. So yeah, Chris is right. This is they should make this car again, but again, so many of the automobile companies, they look at this stuff and they say, well, what's the market for this? We might sell 20,000 over the course of 5 years. How many of them are out there in the used car world that are still available? And there's 10,000 of them. So the market, they look at it and they say, look, many of the automobile companies, they built really good cars over the past 20 years. Many of them are still out there. Why would they compete with a new offering when the used car offering is still out there with lots to choose from?
Yeah, and I don't want to make Chris upset here, but this is back when Ford was owner of Volvo as well, and so it's actually built on the Ford Global, their C car platform.
Yeah,
which you could get a Ford C-Max, a Ford Focus.
Yeah,
they kind of use this platform for that, so you can see some of the stylings that kind of go along with it.
Absolutely, and the Focus, oh my goodness, the performance Focus was a fantastic car. You get a 3-4-year-old one. Some of those you can get for in the 20s, and boy, they'll clean the clock off of a Shelby, a Porsche, pretty much any performance car. They're hiding a tremendous amount of capability in that unassuming profile.
Now, another car came up was in my Facebook question was the Jeep. The Jeep Grand Wagoneer.
Yeah. So the Grand Wagoneer they built for quite a few years with a very, I almost want to say, traditional body design. And that body design lasted for quite some time, partly because they didn't want to redesign it dramatically. And so there's an excellent story on this redesign, because I'm going to mix up the years, but the early series cars from the 80s and into the 90s had that very traditional design that people really liked and still like, with the wood siding left over. There you go. That's maybe a 91, 92. That could even be in late 80s. It's hard to tell because
it's in 86.
86, yeah. So the body design, the details, the trim did not change dramatically on these cars. But these are cars that sell today, beautiful condition. They can be $25,000, $30,000, and people still want them. And oftentimes I refer to it as the "What About Bob" factor, because it featured prominently in "What About Bob." And these cars just sort of have that suburban, gonna go to the beach, family camping. This was when an SUV type platform sort of overlapped with the semi minivanish kind of thinking, but it didn't feel goofy. It didn't feel geeky. It was sort of stylish in a suburban canoe on the roof sort of way, driving through New York, that people wouldn't necessarily question. They just say, oh, there's somebody who kind of does their own thing their own way. And after this design, in the late 90s, there came the other version, which is a sort of a little more dramatic departure. And there's a very interesting controversy about that design, because the designer Larry Shinoda, who had worked for both General Motors and Ford, Shinoda having designed the production version of the '63 Corvette Mako Shark, and other influences, particularly in their performance line, before he went to Ford and did design work on many of their muscle cars, including the Boss 302. Shinoda went and became his own independent design consultancy and designed the next generation version of the Wagoneer. And the design was submitted, and they didn't use it. They said, "Nah, we're turning this down." And later ended up using the design, and Shinoda took him to court and fought for years before they finally agreed to a settlement out of court and paid him. And I think 2-3 years later, Shinoda passed away, but that was effectively his design. The later series one, not the one that's currently shown here.
And then there's a new one they're talking about bringing back, which will look like that.
Right, which as you can see, doesn't have the same sort of charm. It sort of PT Cruiser-fies the idea a little bit, where the PT Cruiser wasn't a retro design of something that had existed before. It was sort of a conglomeration of retro design ideas that you put wood siding on it, and people go, "Oh, that's sort of retro futuristic." This is basically the same thing. This car looks much better without the wood siding on it, because it's a very fresh and contemporary design that doesn't need that wood siding to pull it back into sort of that urban idealism that the original still has.
Now, it reminds me of this one a little bit. I mean, am I right? It's getting a little crazy here.
This was oh my goodness, this was the first vacation movie with Chevy Chase.
Yeah, the family truckster.
The truckster. And I believe this is a George Barris custom. And I think what they gave him, the brief was to make it look ridiculous. And you look at the front of the family truckster and these stacked lights, and think, pull up the current GMC pickup truck, and it's got the family truckster front end. The George Barris was out of his mind when he made this thing, and everybody thought this is just ridiculous. It was supposed to be a farce, but if you look at the current General Motors truck, it's enormous. The front face of that truck is the family truckster.
Hold on, we're getting there.
Yeah. And it's there you go. It's just so stacked up and enormous. It's just giant. And there's another version of that truck. What year is that one that you pulled up?
That's a 2021.
Okay, go to the 2018 or 20, yeah. Because it's just amazing how thick contemporary trucks are, how tall they are. And what seemed like was ridiculous and comedic at this time when they did the family truckster is now common in contemporary truck design. So you see that, and it's really interesting to see because Vacation was 79 or
I think about 81.
Okay.
81, 82. That's a Ford LTD wagon.
Yeah. Which the period from, I'm going to say 74 to 83 was probably among the worst times in automobile history for design. There was some really, really disappointing automobile designs from that period. It isn't until 82, 83 that you start to see life coming back into the American automobile industry. In that period, you look at some European cars and Japanese cars, and things are a little bit better, but not remarkably so. Now.
Yeah, and that dealership is, it used to be, it was actually, is it Jack Ellis?
Oh,
it's in Glendale. It was a Dodge Chrysler dealership.
Yeah.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, let me see if this picture is right. I think this is where it currently is. I don't know if it's going to bring this up exactly what I pulled up here.
So one of the things that they'd suggested was that the family truckster not have any indication on it as to its specific brand. So it had to be modified enough so that they weren't seen as mocking Ford or Ford cars.
Yeah,
And
it's right there on Brand Boulevard. I thought it was across the street over here, but it looks like, oh, okay, I see what happened. So this used to be Glendale Dodge. They moved across the street to what used to be Star Ford. So this is actually the parking lot right there.
There you go.
The scene was
where the birth of the family truckster.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
You can go on a tour. You can go all through California and find famous parts where cars were.
Yeah. And, you know, cars from this period, American cars from 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, these cars, you can buy them for very, very little money. $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. You can buy beautiful ones for $5,000, $6,000. Low mile examples that are original paint and in great condition and driven only on Sundays. You might spend 10 grand. You know, you get an awful lot of car for 10 grand and beautiful condition and not see yourself coming. But be prepared for anywhere between 6 to 8 miles to the gallon if they're big cars, and lots of squeaks and lots of boat-like steering and handling. Whoa.
It is insanity. Now, today is also, I wanted to share, I shared this on Facebook. Today's the 10-year anniversary of me purchasing my 1962 Chrysler. Let me see if I can pull up a picture of it. Here we go. My 1962 Chrysler Newport. It was 10 years ago today that I brought this big green car back over on a ferry.
Look at that. The headlights are really what's amazing. This was 62, I believe. I think this was the last year of Virgil Exner's impact and design on the Chrysler product. But really outrageous. For those that are interested in outrageous 50s American cars, the Virgil Exner period of design from the mid to late 50s into the early 60s, there's some pretty amazing cars that were done during that time. Many of the designs in conjunction with work being done in Europe, the Ghia Studios participated with Exner on some of the most beautiful designs from that period.
Now, this car was amazing because there's another car that has similar headlights. I think it's a, is it a Lincoln that had these headlights as well?
So there are a couple of cars that had canted quad headlamps from that period. And quad headlamps is something that appears on cars, most notably in the Corvettes. I said Corvette. We should be hearing from Jake shortly. So you go from the dual headlamps to the quad headlamps. So here's your car again. This was after you restored it.
Yeah,
and
light restoration.
Yeah. And boy, paint made a big difference on that car.
That's a Mako. By the way, that's a Mako paint job.
Yeah, and they did a fantastic job repainting that car. I just look at the real estate on it. You know, you park an original Mini Cooper, a 67 Mini Cooper next to that car. It's about as long as the distance between the door and the front bumper. That's how big this car was. Just a massive, massive car.
Yeah. And okay, so I bought the car for $2,100.
Yeah.
And I think the paint job might have been $4,000. Double the cost of the paint. And I put wheels and tires on it, put the baby moons. And then I sold it on eBay to some guy in Germany, I think for $9,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, today, you can't find this car for under $10,000 in this condition. I looked online, and a friend even posted when I posted this today. Yeah. He posted, on classiccarsforsale.com, a few of them that are out there. And there was one that was in worse condition than the $2,100 version I bought. And I think they wanted $8,000.
Yeah. These big American cars from the 50s they're great. They can be expensive to restore. If you had to fully restore this car, if your chrome was poor, you could spend 10 grand in chrome alone on this car. So you definitely, if you're going to go buy one of these cars, you definitely want to find the best example you can with minimal amount of work to be done on it. Mechanically, they're very, very basic. You can do the brakes, you can do the engine work. Even the transmission is not complicated. Just don't get a fluid drive from the late 40s to early 50s. Those can be expensive to redo. I had a 49 Chrysler Windsor convertible with fluid drive, and that transmission rebuild was $4,000 alone.
Wow.
So you want to be mindful of that. But in any case, these cars, the Chrysler, the DeSoto, the Plymouth, and the Dodge versions of these cars, there's some pretty exciting ones. The Custom Royal Lancer is one of the most stylish looking ones from the Dodge division. DeSoto Adventurer, super, super great looking cars, giant automobiles with big engines. Chrysler's early Hemi would go into their letter series cars, the Chrysler B, C, D, E, F, etc., convertible and coupe. Fantastic automobiles, lots of fun. Chrysler would never build this car again today, even if they did sort of a retro futuristic variant of it. And that's why, if you have an interest in something like this, buying a classic version of it can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, this one was a lot of fun. I'm sad I let it go, but you have to let them go, else you can't get another one.
That's right. And for those of you who are thinking about buying one, be sure that you measure your garage, because these are big, long cars, and they will fit in a standard garage end to end. So whatever stacks you have of stuff piled up in the back and the front and the sides, make room for this one.
Yeah, and I had it at my office. We had like a storage area, and I had those 4-wheel things you put under the wheels to lift it up, and we were able to push it. So we brought it in, lifted it up, and pushed it into the corner.
Yep.
And that's one way we could store it in there. So yeah, so these are all cars that you can find. They don't make them anymore. I'm sorry to be that old guy. They don't make them like they used to.
Yeah.
Another mention. My friend Jillian, who mentioned the Jeep, also mentioned the old GTO. And Pontiac attempted to bring back the GTO for a short period of time. Wasn't really quite the GTO of yesteryear. And then, of course, Pontiac went away. But the GTOs that exist from 2009 or whenever the year was that they had them, those still fetch a pretty good penny.
And I'll tell you what, though, the last iteration of the GTO was quite the pocket rocket. That thing was fast and very, very capable. It's just another example of here, look how we did it. We did it right. Now we're bowing out. But the people that bought those cars and saved them and kept them low miles and used them sparingly, they're fetching some good money now, because, especially the manual gear shift ones, manual cars are selling, manual transmission cars are selling for a premium now. Used to be that they would be lower priced than the automatic version or the paddle shift version. Now they're selling for 10-20% more for average cars and 30 to 40% more on exotic cars. There's your GTO.
Yeah, 03 to 06 is when they came back with the GTO. So Pontiac can't use the excuse, well, we went out of business, so that's why you stopped this before you went out of business. Yeah, these were interesting cars. Absolutely.
And the platform was very, very well engineered on these cars. You get great balance, great performance. The suspension was fantastic, tons of power from the engine, and lots of comfort and convenience inside the car. You can't buy this car today. No General Motors product exists that adequately replaces it. But a manual transmission GTO with a big V8 engine, you can have an awful lot of fun with that.
Yes, indeed. So if you have any questions that you'd like to ask us about cars, buying, selling, trading, leasing, credit, whatever, you can put it right in the comment section. But while we're waiting for some more questions to come in, we might as well go to Raffi's favorite part of the week.
So, as you know, Dan, I'm a big fan of Studebaker, and I've spoken about Studebakers before, but it's finally time on this day, almost 1 year. We'll call it 1 year. I've held back as long as I could, and I hope I haven't done it before. I checked my list, but it's time to talk about the Studebaker Avanti.
I think we might have.
You think we might have, huh?
I don't know if it was your car. I know I remember talking about, but I don't know if it was actually your car that you brought up.
So I don't think I've old schooled the Avanti yet, but if I have, forgive me, I just have to talk about it again because
it's worth it.
It's worth it. So the Avanti was built by Studebaker in 1963 and 1964. Only 2 years the Studebaker Avanti was available, but this was an enormous, enormous risk for Studebaker, and they needed to take that risk in order to save the company. On the edge of bankruptcy and becoming defunct. And this is why I chose the Avanti today, because Dan, it fits in with your topic of we finally got it right. Now we're out of business. So the Avanti was a super stylish, great looking car, completely ahead of the times. It was what I refer to as the last of the era of Jetsonian designs. So you remember that cartoon called The Jetsons, where they talked about that idealistic mid-century modern future that never materialized. So the Avanti was delivered after about 2 years of development during the early 60s, and they hurried as fast as they could to get these cars to market so that they could save the company. So to do that, they had to use an existing chassis, which was the Studebaker Lark chassis. They had to use fiberglass because they didn't have time to tool the steel to build the body. So it's a fiberglass body car, and they decided to make it a performance luxury car. So they dropped in the 289 four-barrel engine as their R1 designation, which was standard for the 1963. But you could also get the Paxton McCulloch supercharger in the R2, which allowed the car to run in either manual or automatic transmission version with a supercharged engine, which increased the horsepower to 270 horsepower, I believe. Well, you could also get the R3, which was slightly bored out supercharged version. There's an R2 supercharged car. These cars were fantastic. An R2 supercharged car with a manual transmission, fantastic performance car. The Avanti would set 24 Bonneville land speed records. They would perform phenomenally well as performance cars. One of them went actually 196 miles an hour at Bonneville, a stock one, slightly modified. There's the R3 engine. You can see the larger plenum, the intake plenum, on top of the motor. Plenum.
It's got plenty of plenum.
Plenty of plenum there. And, beautiful engine compartment with the chrome valve covers, the cover of the shroud covering the distributor because it's a fiberglass car. And the interior had some fantastic amenities, including one of the first cars that had a cup holder. You'd open up the glove box door, and there would be recessed sections that you could put your coffee cup on. And then you could also pull out what they called a vanity tray, which had a fold-up mirror, so the passenger could do their makeup from the fold-out mirror. But the car also had very, very interesting features, including it was one of the first cars to be offered standard in 1963 with seatbelts. It was also one of the first production American cars to have standard equipment, front disc brakes. It was built with an integral roll bar, so it was a very safe car. And up until the, I'm going to say, late 70s, nobody had ever experienced a fatality associated with driving an Avanti. And so for 10 years, they held that, the safety statement for the Avanti. Now, the one that you're showing here, I believe it's not a stock interior because it's been slightly modified, but that's the interior. Had a padded dash, had a steering wheel that would collapse if you were in an impact, and so it would not impale your chest. Recessed controls, so nothing stuck out. It also had overhead controls that ran the lighting and some of the climate controls, and an overhead console. There's the interior again. Just a great, clean, simple, pure car with American drivetrain, very basic V8 engine, easy to maintain. A nice Avanti is going to cost you, an R1 is going to cost you about 12 to 17,000. One that you can work on gradually. If you buy a fully restored R1, you're going to get closer to 22 to 30,000 for one of those. Now, an R2 is going to cost you a little bit more because it's supercharged and more rare. Those might be 35 to 50,000. But again, you're getting a very unique car. Studebaker built about 4,000 Avantis. In 63, they did the vast majority of those. In 64, they built only 800. 64, most distinguishedly, had the square headlights, and the 63 had the round headlights, these being the bezels around the headlights themselves. In 1965, after Studebaker went out of business, the Altman brothers bought all the tooling and built the Avanti 2, which was available from 65 until I'm going to say the early 80s. And then it was redesigned again. And then in the mid to late 90s, the Avanti finally stopped being produced, but was revived again as the Avanti AVX by Jim Bunting, who asked Tom Kellogg, one of the original designers of the Avanti, to redesign the Avanti into a modern retro vehicle, the first iterations of which were quite handsome, very well done, and actually well built. And then another company bought that design, did some more modifications to it, changed the design a little bit to where not as a little less refined. There's the Avx Convertible, which I think is a very, very handsome car. It's built on the Pontiac F-body platform. So you could get it with the supercharged Pontiac engine. But that whole hood is a clamshell. It opens up fully. But a very, very stylish car. And a car you can buy inexpensively and enjoy very, very easily because simple to work on, very basic. Pretty much any shop can serve it mechanically, or you can do a lot of the work yourself.
There you go. Those are gorgeous cars.
Yeah.
Definitely a unique look.
Yeah. Now, before we go, I did want to touch on one thing, and that is I had a question from a friend of mine looking to buy a new car. He's out shopping, and apparently you can still shop for new cars now. You got to wear a mask, and you got to be safe, and you can go to the dealerships. And boy, he said they really love to see you. But he said he was shocked at how much new technology is in a new car. The last new car he bought was an 07. So when he went to go test drive a car, he said, I could not wrap my arms around all the technology. So one of the things I do want to encourage people to do when they go look for a new car, give yourself plenty of time to assess and evaluate the new technology. It's not a test drive where you're driving the car anymore. You can test drive a car and all that technology without leaving the dealership. So when they say you can take it for a test drive and you go out for 15 minutes and then come back, that's okay. But ask to sit in the car for about an hour and test out all that stuff. Test out the technology. Make sure you're comfortable with it, familiar with it. If you want to study a little bit more carefully, get the online PDF manual for the vehicle and go through and read some of those features that are offered. There's technology in contemporary cars, probably 50% of which we don't even use. So if you're going to make a decision for your next car and it's a new car and you're going to spend a lot of money on it, do yourself a favor and spend the added time going over the technology in those new cars, because it makes a big difference on your decision to make that new car purchase.
Yeah, there are things that even in my little 2017 Kia Soul EV, where all of a sudden I'm like, well, does it do that? And I'm like, oh, it does have that.
Yeah.
You know, and there's settings I can change, and I can make the mirrors fold up when I walk away from the car and come back down when I come back to the car. And there are upgrades you can do. You don't even realize that, you know, you can go Wi-Fi in your car and it'll download the most current update.
Yep.
Some people don't even know they have that. It's not just in Teslas. I mean, there are lots of cars that have updates that you can do over the air. And yeah, there's so much technology in cars now. It is freaky deaky.
Yeah, and look at the technology that's being offered, and don't limit your. Most people say, you know, well, I got the car with Bluetooth, and I can connect up direct with my. I can run my MP3 player. I can, I get Sirius and XM radio. We're way beyond that. There's stuff that's involved in a modern car today that's very impressive, including some of the software stuff that Dan you just mentioned, that is not limited just to a Tesla, that does the overnight downloading for you and updates and things like that. And then also take some time to assess some of the engine management systems, suspension. Don't think of these things as performance issues for the car, but make sure that all of these things are covered by your warranty, and not just for a short period of time, but for a long period of time, because this is stuff that when it goes bad healthy. So it's not going to be a $1,500 fix. It's going to be several $1,000s to fix. So you want to be sure that you're protected, and you want to make sure that you understand what's involved. Something as simple, for example, as the technology on a contemporary Porsche SUV. You can buy one with ceramic brakes. Well, ceramic brakes are phenomenal. The performance is amazing, but God help you if you have to replace them, because ceramic brakes are $25,000 to replace. That's a lot of money, $25,000. So yeah,
I'd rather just not stop.
Exactly. So check the price of your tires. These aggressive, low-profile, tall SUV tires. Replacement for your tires can be extremely expensive. Sometimes $4,000 or $5,000 just for the tires alone. Tire technology and the details inside your tires, tire pressure sensors. Check the suspension. Are you utilizing a steering and suspension system that's computer controlled and computer balanced or regulated? Your shift mechanism, your drive mechanism, all of these things are computer controlled. There's more drive-by-wire vehicles that are out there today. Make sure you understand what you're getting with your vehicle and what the long-term implications are going to be with those features and extras, so to speak. Many of those features are not optional, so you got to get them with the car that you like. Yeah. So you want to be sure that you have the appropriate protection package for when things go wrong, because when they do go wrong, it can be very problematic from a financial perspective.
Yeah, and now my car, like the other day, I didn't realize I can change the steering. I can hit a button and I can have sport steering, comfort steering, or normal steering. Yeah. I had no idea. So I have nice tight steering if I want, or I can have more. Hey, I'm in a Buick, or I can just have, hey, I'm in a Kia Soul. Speaking of alterations and things, Janice in the comments has a good question. She says, I want my Ram 1500 Limited to sound beefier. Should I alter the exhaust? Excuse me. Should I alter the exhaust? Also thinking about putting on Goodyear Wrangler Durango Duratrack. Excuse me. She corrected it down here. Duratrack tires. What say you? Well, first off, if it's a new vehicle and you alter the exhaust, you do have the potential of voiding your warranty.
Yeah, that's the first thing that I would look into is make sure that any alterations you make to the emissions system on your vehicle, even though we don't have emissions testing here in Washington, everything in the engine, including the exhaust system, is linked to the way that vehicle runs. So if you do a performance-based exhaust, you want to make sure that it's the type of exhaust that can be installed that does not radically alter the engine performance in a negative way. Um, the you can probably re-chip your car and get more performance out of it and get a more performance-oriented sound from it without modifying the exhaust. If you look at aftermarket exhaust for your car, it's not a cheap option just to get that sound. I would ask yourself what you want out of that sound. If you just want the excitement and the enthusiasm of the sound that you get from it, you may be able to do that just by changing. I don't know the details of the exhaust on your vehicle, but you might be able to get that just by changing the resonator, everything from the cat back to the tailpipe, rather than doing it from the engine to the cats and all the way back. That may be something that you can do. The other thing is to get some recorded sound of performance engines and play that while you're driving. As far
that's
as
what I was going to say. Just buy a big speaker.
Yeah,
Get a big speaker, go out the back of the truck, and
the Goodyear. So Goodyear makes great tires. As long as those Duratrack tires are within the same dimensional specifications of your existing vehicle, go for it. If you like the profile, if you like the look of those tires on your Ram, go for it. But make sure they're within the specifications of your vehicle, because it will significantly alter the driving dynamics of your car, the comfort of it, the cornering, in some cases, even the stability at highway speeds, particularly with a vehicle of that profile. So just make sure that it fits within the recommendations, the specifications for your factory tires.
all right. If anybody has any other questions, you can post them in the comments before we get out of here for the day. Again, we are here every single Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time, and we're everywhere in the world. You can watch us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. You can also listen to our podcast, which is available on Spotify and Amazon and Apple and all these fun places. And if you're listening to the podcast, tune into the live show. It's kind of fun. You can interact and ask us a question. We did get a request for an interview. Somebody sent us a thing on our Facebook page, but we don't really do interviews. So that might be a separate show. We might do the Clutch interview special or something. You know, just even with the guys in our Cars and Coffee group, we could have some very interesting interviews. But this show is mainly about you, the viewer, the listener.
Yeah, we want to answer your questions. We want to talk with you. If you have things that are on your mind, classics, collectibles, we spent some time on that today. We should do an update on gas prices too, because we haven't done that in a while. And boy, gas prices are changing. Oh. And in Washington State, we're going to have a new tax increase on gas. I think that's coming up.
I'm so glad I had drive an electric, although I have, other cars.
Sure.
So Raffi, what do you think? What state has the cheapest gas right now?
So
and how much is it?
So gas around here has come down just a little bit, but we're still in the 330s, 340s. I filled up yesterday. Thank you, Dan, by the way. And let's see. I think it was 344 where I filled up in Washington.
Did you use premium or regular?
No, regular. But I'm going to say that nationwide, we're probably, I'm going to say 281 as the average.
288.6 is the average right now, and it's on the downturn.
It's on the down. And I think the lowest price gas, Mississippi.
It is Mississippi.
Yeah.
Very, very close to Texas, but Mississippi is at 257.2.
57, which, by the way, was the national average not that long ago.
Yeah.
There was some gas prices during the pandemic that were under $2.
Yeah. The cheapest premium in the country is in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma premium. They're okay.
Dad joke. And since I forgot to do this beforehand, how much is gas where you live?
My day is not complete unless I hear the.
Yeah, how much is your gas where you live? Well, we're going to download this show, get it uploaded to all of the podcast places so you guys can listen. Maybe next week. maybe the week after, we'll have the announcement of the new Car of the Week feature we're going to start doing.
Oh, yeah.
And that'll be exciting. And we'll be talking about sometimes unique cars and sometimes just amazing deals.
There you go.
And a new little project that Raffi and I are working on as part of Clutch Radio here, sort of.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if nobody has any other questions, we say goodbye for today. And we will be back next week. Of course, you can like us on all the social media places that you tend to like us: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We might drop a few of them. I'm thinking maybe we'll just do Facebook because that's where most of it's coming from. And that way it brings everybody together.
There you go.
Or something like that.
And Zuckerberg needs more money.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the show for today. Thank you for watching Clutch Radio. I'm Dan.
And I'm Raffi.
And this is it. Bye.